This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. It's Monday, September 30th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Search, rescue, and recovery this morning in parts of the Southeast.
Help is on the way. It's just going to take some time.
I'm Clayton Neville.
Donald Trump fires personal attacks at Kamala Harris and calls for police to act violently to stop crime.
I believe she was born that way.
I'm John Stolnis.
Senator J.D. Vance and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz are expected to debate for the first and only time.
Secure that southern border.
Haya Panjwani, Washington.
Gas is $3.22 a gallon on average, 13 cents cheaper than a month ago. I'm Rita Foley.
On Wall Street, the Dow opens this morning at a fresh record high for this final day of September trading. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Americans can again order free COVID-19 tests and have them delivered free. Sagar Magani at the White House.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Catastrophic flooding brought on by Hurricane Helene has killed several dozen Americans, including at least 30 in one North Carolina county alone. It's wiped out a coastal Florida town off the map. Correspondent Clayton Neville has the latest.
In Asheville, North Carolina, and the areas around it, at least 30 people were killed from impacts of Helene. The death toll higher than 80 across North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Virginia, and Georgia combined. Dozens reported missing in Tennessee. Helene made landfall in Florida as a Category 4 hurricane before being downgraded to a tropical storm. It dropped between 10 and 29 inches of rain across North Carolina's western mountains. At least 25 people killed in South Carolina alone. Governor Henry McMaster.
Help is on the way. It's just going to take some time.
Historic flooding and landslides.
We haven't seen anything quite like this before, particularly in this part of the state. But it's a devastating blow, but we can make it through.
North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper says the search and rescue efforts in full force.
More than 500 North Carolina National Guard members are now working alongside local emergency responders, conducting search and rescue missions, delivering needed supplies, and working to restore infrastructure.
With closed roads, some of them just gone after being washed away, getting supplies and resources into the hardest hit areas is tough. So
we began airlifting supplies, including food and water, into the region.
President Biden said federal help is on the way.
It's tragic. As a matter of fact, we're trying to get the exact number. My FEMA advisor is on the ground in Florida right now.
On CBS's Face the Nation, FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell said that landslides in North Carolina were not expected.
Historic flooding up in North Carolina, and especially this western part of North Carolina. I don't know that anybody could be fully prepared for the amount of flooding and landslides that they are experiencing right now.
More than 4 million customers lost power across the South over the weekend, and close to 2 million still without power late Sunday night. A lot of the outages in Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis.
We are now looking at a power situation where, since the beginning impacts of the storm, 2.175 million accounts have been restored. 227,000 accounts are outstanding.
Other American states chipping in to help. The state of Texas sending power generators to Georgia, and Massachusetts sending resources to the Carolinas as recovery there is just beginning. I'm Clayton Neville.
In a series of speeches in battleground states this weekend, former President Trump launched a series of personal attacks against Vice President Kamala Harris. Providing an update and following the campaign trail, our John Stolnis reports.
Speaking to supporters in Erie, Pennsylvania yesterday, Trump began speaking about recent high-profile daylight robberies of shops in certain major cities, indicating he'd be in favor of police violently making an example of would-be criminals.
You know, if you had one day, like one real rough, nasty day with the drugstores as an example, but they have to be taught. Now, if you had one really violent day, like a guy like Mike Kelly, put him in charge, one rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately.
Trump also going on the attack against Kamala Harris, questioning the vice president's mental fitness.
Crooked Joe Biden became mentally impaired, sad. But lying Kamala Harris Honestly, I believe she was born that way.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker responds on CNN's State of the Union.
I think whenever he says things like that, he's talking about himself, but trying to project it onto others.
On Friday, Harris visited the southern border in Arizona, criticizing Trump for helping sink a bipartisan Senate deal on immigration reform. Trump in Wisconsin on Saturday fired back.
No matter what lies she tells, Kamala Harris can never be forgiven for her erasing our border, and she must never be allowed to become president of the United States.
Multiple new polls over the weekend show a neck-and-neck race in key battleground states. A New York Times Siena College poll finds Harris leading by 1 point in Michigan and 2 points in Wisconsin. Trump is up 6 in Ohio. 2 Fox News polls of likely voters in Pennsylvania show the candidates tied, with Trump up 1 in North Carolina. I'm John Stolnis.
Potential vice presidents square off when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues this first full week of autumn. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton with the national forecast.
A rather strong early autumn cold front will continue on its trek across the nation today. This feature will be the one to finally clear out the extended period of wet weather that has plagued parts of the east since Hurricane Helene reached the area. But for today, this front will push through the northern and central plains into the Midwest, bringing much cooler conditions in its wake to places such as northern portions of Utah, Colorado, and Nevada, Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana, and the Dakotas. In many of these places, record or near record highs set on Sunday give way to just the 50s and 60s later today. But in all of these spots, as well as across just about all of the western half of the nation, a dry start to the work week can be expected thanks to sprawling high pressure and a storm track that is very much favoring southern Canada early this week. However, a couple of showers can occur this afternoon near and along the Minnesota-Canada border, thanks to the same front bringing the cooler start to the week in the interior west. The day's best chance for wet weather will once again reside from the interior south through the mid-Atlantic and parts of the northeast, where a disturbance fueled by moisture remaining from what was once Hurricane Helene continues to produce some showers, this time from northern Alabama and Mississippi through Tennessee and into much of western Ohio. Some steadier rain is more likely from eastern Ohio into central Pennsylvania, tapering to drizzle or just some showers toward the coast from New Jersey into North Carolina, where there can even be some thunder. A zone from western Maryland to central Virginia may even have some heavy rain at times. In Billings, Montana, yesterday's daily record high of 94 will be replaced by windy conditions and some sun with a high of just 61. For the nation's capital, watch for periods of rain and drizzle with a high of 70. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
I'm John Trout. Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Considering how close the polls are, there could be a lot at stake in tomorrow night's vice presidential debate. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
Vance said at a Michigan rally that he's been preparing to debate the Democratic vice presidential candidate.
It's an opportunity for me to get to tell the American people how I think we can make their lives better and how Donald Trump's policies can make them more prosperous, can make the world more peaceful, and can secure that southern border.
Meanwhile, Walz in North Carolina called his Republican counterpart out for his remarks on immigrant communities in Vance's home state.
They asked him if maybe it was an accident or he didn't mean it. No, he said, I admit it. I'm willing to create stories to spread fear to drum up support for us.
Insiders say the Walz-Vance debate might shift some voter opinions, since the presidential candidates have shared a stage just once in early September. Walz and Vance square off on Tuesday in New York. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
Gasoline, a big factor in the climbing rate of inflation, but if you filled up your tank over the weekend, you probably noticed you're paying a lot less. Correspondent Rita Foley reports.
Gas is $3.22 a gallon on average, 13 cents cheaper than a month ago, 61 cents less than a year ago. And the AAA says pump prices will probably drop even more due to so-so demand and low oil costs. The states where gas is most expensive are California, Hawaii, and Washington. It's least expensive in Mississippi, Texas, and Louisiana. And Andrew Gross, the AAA spokesperson, says Helene, the storm, will probably affect gas demand, but not supply. He says power failures, structural damage, and road flooding will get in the way of people fueling up, but just for a few days. I'm Rita Foley.
15 states are now paying less than $2.99 a gallon for regular. A year ago, no state was paying less than $3.40 a gallon. 50,000 seasonal jobs. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. The Monday Report. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning for the final day of September trading. Stocks are coming off a winning week, and they're on pace for a winning month, too, which bucks the recent trend of September's being a rotten month for stocks for the last few years. The Dow opens at a record high this morning. Even with an election around the corner and volatility, some investors see a strong economy and no reason for stocks to not go even higher.
The resiliency of the market this year, we're up 20% year to date, 42 new highs of the year. So we've been bullish for about 2 years now. We got rid of our recession call about 18 months ago.
BNY Wealth's Alicia Levine on CNBC. Inflation keeps dropping, coming in lower than expected for August.
Now we get into the Moneyball numbers. The PCE price index year over year, expecting 2.3. It comes in light, 2.2. We are making progress. It was 1.9 in February of 21. It's still not at 2%, but it's certainly getting closer.
CNBC's Rick Santelli. Here's CNBC senior economics reporter Steve Leisman.
You know, there's going to be a time to declare victory on inflation, and this is darn close. Obviously, everybody wants to be a little wary, the idea that it could come back, but these are good numbers. This is what the Fed wants to see.
Would-be home buyers out looking at houses over the weekend were getting mortgage quotes at their lowest in 2 years. The average rate on a 30-year fixed home loan now around 6%, depends on your credit score, and that's instead of 8%. This could help the housing market start to loosen up. Spirit Halloween has more than 1,500 locations open this year. It's busy season. It was looking for 50,000 seasonal workers nationwide and hoping to top that off now.
Major retailers are, trying to get our buy-in.
Yeah, well, they all know you're going to buy in November and December for Christmas. So the biggies are trying to get you to spend in the traditionally slow month of October, too, which starts tomorrow, right? Target has a big sale coming up this coming Sunday. Next week, it's Walmart and Amazon with deals.
We've had a strong back-to-school surge, so most retailers and brands have had good back-to-school numbers, and now the holiday season is a few days shorter this year, so it is going to be promotional, and retailers are eager to get started on it.
Bernstein Research's Anisha Sherman on CNBC. On today's watch list, not only is this the final day of September trading today, it's also the final business day of the third quarter of the year. Accountants are busy. Earnings are coming today from Carnival Cruise Line, and Apple's 2-week trade-up event starts today. This is where they tell you to take your old devices and trade them in for credit against newer ones.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger with the Monday Report. Rescue attempt in space when America in the Morning returns after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. Rapidly increasing the number of new coronavirus cases in Russia and Europe. The trend remains lower in the U.S. And as Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports, Americans can get free COVID test kits sent directly to their home.
The federal government's reopened the program, letting any household order up to 4 free test kits at covidtest.gov. They'll start shipping as soon as next week. The website's back in business after a summer virus wave. Doctors are warning of a potential fall and winter surge. They're urging Americans to protect themselves against recent virus strains and hopefully future ones by getting an updated vaccine.
Maybe we believe that it's not going to be me, but let's not take a chance.
George Washington University's Michael Knight reminds people getting both the COVID and flu vaccines at the same time is safe. Sagar Meghani at the White House.
Definitely not your typical rescue mission. Correspondent Julie Walker reports. SpaceX launched a manned rocket for the 2 NASA astronauts stranded on the International Space Station.
Liftoff SpaceX Crew 9.
Liftoff, Crew 9. Go SpaceX, go Falcon, go NASA.
From Cape Canaveral's Launch Pad 40 in Florida, Saturday expected to reach the International Space Station, SpaceX will eventually bring 2 stranded NASA astronauts home. Commander Nick Hay.
The Crew 9, unbreakable. We go together.
Also aboard Russia's Alexander Gorbanov, 2 other astronauts got bumped to make room so that Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, who are stuck in space after their Boeing Starliner capsule was deemed unsafe and came back empty. They will finally return next year because of rotation schedules. I'm Julie Walker.
America in the Morning for Monday, September 30th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour, the latest on storm damage in the southeast and
Israel's military has said dozens of Israeli aircraft have struck Houthi targets in Yemen. I'm Karen Shamas.
U.S. Central Command says its airstrikes have killed nearly 40 people linked to extremist groups in Syria. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Charges against a man who allegedly threatened to kill his political rival. I'm Clayton Neville.
Governor Newsom vetoes landmark AI safety bill. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
The Wild Robot rockets to #1 at the box office. I'm Archie Zaraletta with the latest.
Saturday Night Live took on the presidential race in its season 50 premiere. I'm Kevin Carr.
We're back after these messages. America in the Morning continues in the aftermath of Helene. Today, for most, a placid day across the nation. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
In general, the vast majority of the country does have yet another dry day in store, with broad, strong high pressure holding up in most places. The Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast remain the center of activity as the lingering moisture from what was once major Hurricane Helene continues to spin over the Tennessee and Ohio valleys today. This energy may slowly track to the east through the day, but this will not quite be fast enough to keep steady rain and drizzle out of locations from northwestern Pennsylvania and central West Virginia through much of Virginia, where some heavy rain is also expected at times. Outside of these areas, count on at least a stray shower today from central and southern New Jersey to northern and western Ohio, and south and west to areas such as northern Mississippi and Alabama, perhaps also giving a shower to the Atlanta area. There can even be some thunder near the coast and points inland from Virginia through North Carolina. However, some more typical showers and afternoon thunderstorms should build over Florida, particularly across the Florida Peninsula, but the rest of the Gulf Coast region looks dry today. A couple of brief showers may develop this afternoon in northern Minnesota along a rather potent cold front advancing from the northern and central plains toward the upper Midwest, but rain-free conditions are instead in store from Oklahoma and Texas across the Great Lakes region and through the western United States. Some of the edge will be taken off the recent heat for residents from Montana and Wyoming to Idaho, the Dakotas, and even northern parts of Utah and Colorado, where near-record heat will be replaced by highs that only get up to the 50s and 60s in some spots. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Towns cut off, some underwater, hundreds of bridges damaged or destroyed, rivers still overflowing, and more than 2 million customers in North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida are without power. The aftermath of Helene will be felt in these states for months, even years to come, as many lost their homes and businesses. 5 states deal with emergency disaster declarations, and a large number of people are still unaccounted for. The latest from correspondent Julie Walker.
North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper says the state is hard at work getting food and water to hundreds of thousands of people trapped by Hurricane Helene in the mountains, even as rescue efforts continue.
A lot of people who are concerned about relatives and friends that they cannot get in touch with.
He says they are trying to get cell phone communications up.
We know that a lot of these people are just simply out of communication and are okay.
Nearly 300 roads remain closed. At least 45 out-of-state search and rescue teams joined 500 National Guard troops in both rescues and airdropping food and water. Ken Graham with the National Weather Service says North Carolina recorded almost 31 inches of rain.
Staggering amount of water causing this devastation.
I want to remind all North Carolinians that conditions on the ground remain extremely dangerous. Roadways are damaged, there are downed power lines and unstable ground. There are still many rain-swollen rivers across the mountains, and it may take some time for the flooding to fully dissipate.
And the areas hardest hit by Helene, especially North Carolina's Buncombe County, where Asheville is. Many posting on social media heartbreaking stories of needing help. Sheriff Quentin Miller.
Not that we was not prepared, but this is going to another level.
Water rose above roofs. There's little to no power or cell service. County Manager Avril Pinder says boat rescues continue.
We are in the midst of the most significant natural disaster in our community.
In Georgia, Governor Brian Kemp says roads are blocked and they're dealing with flash floods, mudslides, and avalanches.
From a statewide perspective, this storm spared no one. And as Tim Golden, the DOT commissioner, said to me, these storms are taking the soul out of me. And I know that's how people are feeling down here.
In Steenhatchee, Florida, a small river town along the state's rural Big Bend, where Hurricane Helene made landfall, Janalia England turned her store into a donation center.
I've never seen so many people homeless as what I have right now.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says the situation is bad and the state is sending trailers for people to live in.
You have surge that just completely wiped out some of these homes. I mean, really destruction.
He also says they're helping North Carolina.
We're pushing some assets up there to be able to help folks.
I'm Julie Walker.
Following Israel's bombing in southern Beirut that killed the leader of Hezbollah along with other top members of the terror group and a senior Iranian general, the Israeli military continued to target other Hezbollah leaders along with an attack on Yemen after Iranian-backed terrorists there launched a missile that Israel intercepted heading toward Tel Aviv. Correspondent Karen Shamas reports that White House National Security spokesman John Kirby, speaking on ABC News This Week with George Stephanopoulos, says Israel is putting its enemies on notice that it will no longer tolerate attacks.
The command structure has been nearly decimated. Thousands of missiles and drones destroyed by Israel over the last few days. There's no question that the Hezbollah today is not the Hezbollah that it was even just a week ago.
Lebanon's health ministry has said Israeli airstrikes have killed dozens of people in Lebanon's south, as Hezbollah also confirmed the death of another high-ranking official. Shortly after the consecutive strikes on Ain al-Dalb, east of Sidon, rescuers came with excavators to search through the rubble.
The leader of the terrorist army Hezbollah was killed by Israel Defense Forces in a precise strike in Beirut while he was in Hezbollah's central headquarters commanding more imminent attacks against the people of Israel.
Iran's president has accused Israel of seeking a wider war in the Middle East and laying traps to lead his country into a wider conflict. Masoud Pezeshkian told about 24 media representatives that Iran doesn't want to see the current war in Gaza and airstrikes across the Israeli-Lebanon border expanded. He said while Israel insists it doesn't want a wider war, it's taking actions that show otherwise. Meanwhile, Israel's military has said dozens of Israeli aircraft have struck Houthi targets in Yemen. Fire and plumes of smoke could be seen in the air over Hodeidah after the strikes. The strikes in Yemen and Lebanon came as Hezbollah confirmed the death of Nabil Kaouk, the 7th senior Hezbollah leader slain in Israeli strikes in little over a week. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced the appointment of a former rival, Gideon Saar, as a member of his cabinet, expanding his coalition and strengthening his hold on office. I'm Karen Chamas.
Well, it's not just Israel targeting terrorists in the Middle East. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports the U.S. military says it's killed several dozen Islamic extremists, including ISIS fighters, in a targeted strike in Syria.
The U.S. military announces it struck in northwestern Syria earlier in the week, targeting a senior militant from an al-Qaeda-linked group and 8 others. And earlier this month, Central Command says it conducted a large-scale airstrike on an Islamic State group training camp located in central Syria, in which 28 militants were killed, 4 of them described as leaders. There are approximately 900 U.S. forces in Syria, along with military contractors who mostly focus on trying to prevent any comeback by ISIS, which swept through Iraq and Syria about a decade ago. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Among the stories we're covering next on America in the Morning, California governor regulates AI. After these messages. I'm John Trout. You're with America in the Morning. Endorsement received, but not given. Former Maryland GOP Governor Larry Hogan says he will not be voting for Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump, despite the former president giving Hogan his endorsement as he runs for the U.S. Senate in Maryland. Hogan told CBS Face the Nation he didn't vote for Trump in 2016 or 2020, but did not say who he would cast a ballot for. In the past, Trump called Hogan a rhino, Republican in name only. Nearly all recent polls in Maryland have Hogan trailing his Democrat rival, Angela Alsobrooks, by 7 to 12 points. America in the Morning continues. The Justice Department is charging the political rival of a congresswoman from Florida over alleged threats he made to kill her. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The DOJ charging 41-year-old Robert Braddock III with threatening to kill Florida Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. He's said to have threatened to send a Russian-Ukrainian hit squad to take out his political rival. The DOJ says that Braddock left the U.S. after the alleged threats and was found in the Philippines. He was ultimately sent back to the States, where he made his first court appearance in L.A. late last week. Luna was endorsed by former President Trump twice and is a high-profile politician in Florida. She testified that she had met Braddock once briefly at a political event, but she said she heard from several people that he was allegedly threatening to have her murdered. I'm Clayton Neville.
An interstate highway remains closed outside of Atlanta, not because of Hurricane Helene. A fire at a chemical plant in Conyers, Georgia, forced the evacuation of a nearby residential area, and thousands were told to shelter in place and not go outside after a massive plume of smoke blanketed the area. Authorities believe a faulty fire sprinkler valve malfunctioned, and that the water mixing with the water-reactive chemical produced that toxic cloud. No injuries have been reported. Rain couldn't dampen the spirits of thousands of people who took part in the annual Tunnel to Towers run. Bob Brown reports from the Big Apple.
3, 2, 1.
Thousands of runners lining up for the start of the annual 5K Tunnel to Towers run, heading to the entrance of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel and ending on the Manhattan side near where the Twin Towers had once stood. All in memory of former FDNY firefighter Stephen Siller, who courageously ran through the tunnel with 60 pounds of gear on his back to the foot of the towers, where sadly he and more than 300 firefighters sacrificed their lives when the towers fell. Tunnel to Towers supports families of fallen first responders. WABC WBC TV New York talking with runners and those like Tiffany Eckert, who's running for the first time.
I couldn't sleep last night, and every time I think about walking through the tunnel, I get choked up thinking of Steven's story.
This event is incredibly important for my family, something that I like to run and just remember the sacrifice that was made on that day 21 years ago.
One runner describing the scene as incredibly emotional.
You get past that, and FDNY is out there with the pipes and drums, and I mean, from there, it's just, there's people all over the place, and it's really a good day for America and for New York to remember.
Bob Brown, New York.
California Governor Gavin Newsom shot down a landmark AI safety bill that was designed to rein in some of the reach of large model AI systems, but he said it went too far. Here's Chuck Palm with more on that story in today's Tech Report.
California Governor Gavin Newsom has vetoed a landmark AI bill yesterday, meant to establish safety measures and guardrails for large artificial intelligence models. The bill would have established some of the first regulations on AI and paved the way for AI safety regulations. However, at a conference earlier this month, the governor said that this could have a chilling effect on the industry. The proposal drew fierce opposition from startup tech giants and several Democrat House members and could have hurt the industry by establishing rigid requirements. The author of the bill, Democrat State Senator Scott Weiner, called the veto a setback for everyone who believes in oversight of massive corporations that are making decisions affecting safety and welfare. Proponents of the measure, including Elon Musk and Anthropic AI company, said that the proposal could have injected some level of transparency and accountability around large-scale AI models. For more tech news, visit allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
America in the Morning continues with a check of Monday sports. Here's Robert Workman.
Sunday was the last day on the baseball schedule, but not everything goes according to schedule. 4 playoff positions were in play and 2 were settled. White Sox whipped the Tigers 9-5, so Detroit gets the 6th seed in the American League and a trip to Houston for 1 wildcard series. The Royals beat the Braves 4-2 to snag the 5 seed in the AL. KC is headed to Baltimore. Atlanta's loss means the National League wildcard chase will extend into this afternoon. They'll host the Mets in a makeup doubleheader. First baseman Matt Olson.
It's what we got, and it's kind of what we've said all year. We've had some injuries. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that we got to play 2 tomorrow, and it's just like I said, show up and win.
Sunday, the Mets blanked the Braves 5-0. David Peterson and friends with a 3-hitter. Diamondbacks drubbed the Padres 11-2 to stay alive, though they can do nothing but hope now. If the Mets and Braves split the 2 games today, they both go to the playoffs. Atlanta is the 5 seed, New York the 6, and Arizona is out. If either team sweeps the double dip, that team is the 5, and the Diamondbacks are the 6 seed. The 5 goes to San Diego, the 6 to Milwaukee. The 4 best-of-3 wildcard series begin tomorrow. NFL Week 4, 5 unbeaten teams coming into Sunday, all of them playing on the road. The Vikings beat the Packers 31-29 to improve to 4-0. The Chiefs rallied past the Chargers 17-10. The Colts handed the Steelers their first loss 27-24. Joe Flacco off the bench to throw for 2 scores.
Kept telling myself, just do the simple things, and it's definitely a different experience, when you come in like that.
Sunday night, the Ravens romped over the Bills 35-10, Buffalo's first loss. The previously winless Bengals clawed the Panthers. The Texans dropped the Jaguars to 0-4 with a comeback win. Commanders crushed the Cardinals. Buccaneers blasted the Eagles. 49ers pounded the Patriots. Wins for the Falcons, Bears, Broncos, and Raiders. College football, 2 new number 1s this week. Alabama's upset of Georgia vaulted the Crimson Tide to the top of the AP poll just ahead of Texas, while the Longhorns are now number 1 in the coaches survey. That's Monday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. Box office mega flop. SNL turns 50. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. He started out as a singer and songwriter, but his career morphed into television and Hollywood films as an actor. Chris Christopherson passed away at his Hawaii home. He authored several number 1 country hits, including Sunday Morning Comin' Down for Johnny Cash. His He and Bobby McGee was a top song with Janis Joplin. On the big screen, he went on to star in the 70s hit Convoy and A Star is Born with Barbra Streisand, and appeared in a number of TV shows. Christopherson, who also won 3 Grammy Awards, was 88 years old. America in the Morning continues. Megalopolis was a mega flop in theaters and could cost its director mega millions of his own money. Entertainment correspondent Margie Zaraletta has a look at the weekend box office.
Congratulations on your purchase of a Universal Dynamics robot.
The Wild Robot, an animated film about a shipwrecked robot that raises a gosling, was a surprise hit. It debuts with $35 million in domestic ticket sales, according to studio estimates. Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, which cost him $120 million of his own money, failed to reach the top 5. Last week's number 1, Beetlejuice, drops to second place. Transformers 1 is number 3. The action film Devara Part 1, which is in the Indian Telugu language, debuts in 4th place. Speak No Evil is number 5. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
To kick off its 50th season, Saturday Night Live took some pot shots at the presidential campaigns. Kevin Carr has details.
Live from New York, it's
Saturday Night Live celebrated 50 years on the air this weekend, and in classic style, the biggest laughs came from current events.
I am so happy to be campaigning in whatever swing state I'm in, which I will just refer to as Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia.
Maya Rudolph returned as Democratic candidate Kamala Harris. Then comedian Jim Gaffigan took the stage as Harris running mate Tim Walz.
I haven't been this excited since I got a 10% rebate on a leaf blower from Menards.
Another SNL alum, Andy Samberg, joined in as second gentleman Doug Emhoff.
Also known as Charlie Brown if he was a grown-up.
Ironically, the oldest alumni, Dana Carvey, played President Joe Biden.
Thank you for putting country first and for handing over the reins.
I didn't want to. They made me.
His performance channeled another famous character from the 90s.
With a commentary is Grumpy Old Man. Welcome, Grumpy Old Man.
I'm not happy.
On the other side of the aisle, current cast members took on the Republican ticket.
I miss Joe Biden, oh Joe. We miss Joe Biden, folks, what we wouldn't give to have him stand next to me and be old.
James Austin Johnson played former President Donald Trump, and his Veep pick, J.D. Vance, was played by Bowen Yang.
How much do we love Donald Trump? Just this afternoon he told me, J.D., you're like a son to me because I don't like you and I'm stuck with you.
I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Monday, September 30th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.